Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Tuesday edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, the Hey Mary Kay edition of the podcast where our Football Insider subscribers submit questions. We answer them. Let's just start here, Mary Kay. This is Robert from Ponte Vedra, Florida, by way of Cleveland, Ohio. I feel like we haven't heard from Robert in a little while. Maybe I'm wrong. But he says, Hey, Mary Kay, in the infamous words of Bill Parcells, you are what your record says you are. The Browns are a mediocre 2-2 against less than mediocre opponents. Do they have a mediocre roster playing to their potential, or is it the coaching?
It's a great question, Robert. Robert always asks great questions. So nice to hear from you again, Robert. Right now, I think it is all of the above in some ways. When I look to the loss to the Falcons, I've been thinking a lot about it since yesterday, and I attribute it to a lot of different things, none of which are the decision to go for it on 4th and 3 from the 4 on the first drive. There are so many other things that happened in that game to cause them to lose this football game that I just don't think that had everything to do with it. I do think that right now, Jacoby Brissett is what he is, and Dan deserves some credit for just kind of keeping that in perspective over the last few weeks when he was really exceeding expectations. I think Dan was trying to say, there's going to come a time when he's going to regress, when he's going to look more like Jacoby Brissett, who, we have seen throughout his career. And I think that happened yesterday. I really do. I think that Jacoby had his worst game since the opening game against the Panthers. I think they were very lucky to win that game. I think the fact that the officials picked up that flag on the spike and the fact that Cade York nailed a 58-yard field goal enabled them to win that game. So, we've talked about this before. I mean, these guys could be, they could be any combination of 4 games that you want to say, depending on what could have happened at the end of all of these games. I think that Jacoby struggled yesterday. I think that had a lot to do with it. I think the fact that Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney were not in that game had a whole lot to do with it, regardless of what anybody says. I mean, when you take your 2 star defenders off the field and suddenly 2 backup running backs are just running roughshod all over you in the second half of the game, I think there's a reason for that. And then coaching, there are some no coaching decisions are ever going to be perfect. But I don't think it was a game that was horribly called yesterday. I didn't think it was horribly called. People want to, rip Kevin Stefanski when he tries things like, a tight end reverse or a flea flicker screen or things like that. But I recall last season when everybody was up in arms because he wasn't doing anything creative and everything was so bland and they didn't do this and they didn't do that. So I think a lot of times it comes down to execution. And I think the Atlanta Falcons executed their game plan better than the Browns did yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. The question was kind of presented as an either or, and I don't know that I agree that either is like, I don't think this is a mediocre roster. And I still believe in this coaching staff, but at the same time, but I don't know. I guess that's why it's disappointing because, our texter is right. The Browns are 2-2 against Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco, Mitch Trubisky, and Marcus Mariota. And that's something's off. I don't know if it's just the quarterback play, but then again, I mean, you got 2 really great weeks from Jacoby Brissett. And like we've been saying, he is who he is, but you can win with Jacoby Brissett. I think we've seen that in other places, at least for a short stretch, you can win with Jacoby Brissett. And so I don't know. It just feels like these first 4 games, there's something's off. I don't know what. It's not like the fire alarms that were going off last year, but there's something amiss if you go 2-2 against the schedule.
You know what? You can win with Jacoby Brissett when he's playing well. He has been inconsistent so far. He's played what I would consider to be 2 bad games, one that he pulled out a victory, and he's played 2 good games. So, and one that they blew and lost. So I just think that he has been up and down and inconsistent. But when I look at that game yesterday, some of those